Welcome back to A.R. Tales, aka the A.R.T. podcast. I am A.R. and today I am joined by Naomi Ault, Kindle Vella author and author of the supernatural fantasy horror Chew. Her take on the whole zombie apocalypse genre is going to be a great read. First season is up now. Check it out. Kindle Vella. Naomi, say hi to the people and where can they find you and your terrific work?
Hi, how are you? You can find it on Kindle Vella. So if you go to your Kindle app on iOS, and there's a new section there that you go to Discover, I think it is the link, and you go to Kindle Vella, I guess it would be. It's still in beta. They're developing it. I'm hoping we get our own app. I think that would be a lot nicer for readers to be able to navigate and to find the stories that they want to find. But for right now, you kind of have to go through your iOS app to get to it.
That's not a bad start though, so that people can kind of transition their way, and as it kind of gets bigger, more titles and a little more momentum going its way, more people can, I think, it'll merit its own app within
Right.
time.
It was a soft launch, but I would say author-wise, it exploded right from the beginning. There's thousands of authors and thousands of stories already on there. I think it launched July 15th or thereabouts, and we were all there ready to go. So there's definitely, you buy your tokens. That's how they kind of operate. You will not have any, there'll be plenty of places to spend them. There's a ton of stories right now.
So how did it work? Did you know about Kindle Vella prior? Did you have Chew already kind of in the pipeline, and then you heard about Kindle Vella and it just happened to coexist perfectly? Or how did that work? How did the development of a Kindle Vella work begin?
That's exactly how it worked. It was timing. It was just perfect timing. I'd already started writing it, but I just started writing it. And then they announced that they were going to have this new product, and I started thinking about it. And I thought, this would be perfect for that whole episode format. And so then going forward, I sort of wrote it for that way. So each chapter, so to speak, kind of ends on a little cliffhanger type thing, what's going to happen next, sort of like television. So.
Okay, now that's very fun. Now, when you said like television, your inspiration, well, prior to the current inspiration, where did your inspiration start in writing in general? When did writing start for you? When did that passion develop?
Oh, I mean, I wrote for myself probably when my kids were small. I mean, when you're a parent and you can't go anywhere, you can't afford to go anywhere. I mean, at least we couldn't. We spent all our money on our kids, so that was a fun, cheap hobby that I kind of got into. And then when they get older, then I kind of got busy, and I sort of put all that down for a while. So I actually just started writing again. Oh gosh, February of this year, I think. So this is my first thing that I've ever tried to publish.
Wow. First time, and you went on a new platform. How's that feel?
Well, the good news is I don't have anything to compare it to. So I mean, all the good stuff. I mean, there's a lot that I think that's good about it. I don't know. Yeah, I guess maybe a differently published author would have different feelings about Bella, but I think it's going great. I like it. I get excited about every little thing though. So everything's new and shiny. You get one reader on your little dashboard, and oh yay, I get excited about all of it. So.
Now that's fun. Now I don't know how much you know about the techniques, so there's more kind of my ignorance on the subject, but I know that I had talked about it before. I think when the soft launch had just launched, right? So what I was asking the person at the time was, when you release these episodic chapters, when you, let's say that your entire book Chew, you're gonna plan it out to be a 30 episode book work all together. If you release 29 out of 30 on Kindle Vella, can you then pull it and then put it on regular Kindle as a novel later?
So my interpretation, because they changed the rules kind of a lot in the beginning. When we signed on, they had to make changes as we went. So my interpretation is, you can make at least 10, as long as you have 10 episodes. If you want to take at least 10 episodes and turn that into something like an ebook, whatever, Kindle Unlimited, you can do that as long as the last live episode has been 30 days has passed. So my last live episode for what I'm considering to be season 1 was on August 11th. So September 11th and later, I'm now free to publish that first season as an ebook, a print book, whatever I want. And I don't have to take it down. So, I mean, you could take it down, but why would you? I mean, it's already there. There's people who prefer that format and reading. A lot of people who are just finding out about it think it's fun. And so I don't see any reason to pull them down. Some people might, but I don't. So,
No, yeah, that's a debate that I feel like it's like reared off every so often, especially with all these anthology series and all these people creating an anthology, and people have
mhm,
different rules of submission and what you have to do
yes.
upon a short story. I've had people that tell me that I have to just take everything down wherever it is, and their argument is like, well, why would somebody pay for it if it's already been read elsewhere? It's like, well, because the people that read it elsewhere probably don't know. I mean, the internet's a pretty big place, you know.
Mhm,
Um,
exactly.
but just I don't know. I think that level of new platform, not just for writing itself, but just the lengths that you can go. I mean, just you said it as a season, meaning how many words in total do you what do you think the word count is for your season 1?
So for season 1, I actually know it's 43,000 words. And I only know because I actually wrote it
That's a
and had it
novel,
edited
yeah.
all in one big break. Yeah, I just did the whole thing at one time, and then I scheduled it all out so that I had time to do other stuff and I didn't have to look at it every single week to post it.
Oh my God,
I
that's
wish I had
fascinating.
done that with the second season because now I'm a little behind. It's written, but I'm not quite as far ahead as I was with that first season. So I scramble every week a little bit. But yeah, so I think I'm hoping for 7 or 8 seasons actually with 2. I It was supposed to be a short story, 2,000 words, and it wouldn't leave me alone. And here we are. So I don't know, 7 or 8 seasons, I think.
And how did plot wise, story wise, how do you encapsulate each season? What is the driving force? Now, without getting into spoilers, obviously, but can you kind of drive what is the character development? What is the A to B going on? Is there the conflict and resolution? Like, how did you build the plot from season to season? And not only that, but from episode to episode within the season.
So there is each season sort of has its own arc.
Mm.
And I keep saying it like TV because it really kind of is a lot like TV. So each season is going to have its own arc, but then there's an overall arc for the whole series. And so when I say like 7 or 8, I don't know how long exactly how many it's gonna take to get to that final series arc. Because I wrote the ending. I already know how it ends, and I wrote the ending way back when I wrote the first chapter, first episode. So however long it takes to get from point A to point B is how many seasons it'll be. But basically, they have a new hurdle. There's actually two main characters. We sort of flip back and forth between them. You've got the cured zombie point of view, who's originally was the only main character, but then I kind of started thinking there's this guy, his name's Luke, and he was never infected. And he works in healthcare. And so what was it like on the other side of things? And he kind of gives you perspective of what the society feels about these previously infected people who they still treat as if they're still infected. So I
Mm.
mean, to society, there's no difference between being cured or not being cured. They're pretty much treating them the same way all the way around.
Do you think that's a social commentary on anything going on
Oh
today?
yeah, it sure is. um, I don't want to give any spoilers, and I'd rather people see what they want to see. I feel like I put stuff out there, and then people are going to get what they get out of it. I don't want to comment too much on that, but oh, for sure, I would say.
I think that's almost the eternal plight of being an author where, you know, I think most of us, well, I would say in American educational system wise, most of us had like an English class where, you were breaking down Shakespeare to the 9th degree and you're just in back of class talking about like, how do you even know that he meant this? Why can't a flower just be a red flower? Why does it have to mean like life and death and all these crazy other things? And how does it now relate to chapter 1? But then you become a writer and you put all those stuff in there purposely 100% thinking like that.
Right.
And then you release this work and people go like, oh yeah, it's great. And you're waiting for them. It's like, oh, but did you get that? You get that thing in chapter 3 where the the dead body, it looked like a skull, and then like it
Right.
foreshadowed to happen like chapter 16, and it all like maps out. And if you put the chapters in together and you like write it down and like put it backwards, it says my name. Did you get that?
Did you get that?
Did you get that part?
I leave little stuff like that all the time. I don't know, just even stuff that really doesn't matter. Just I think it's fun. Like I got a whole thing going on with rats right now. It's not even in the season yet. Like, but and then you just sit and you kind of wait. Did they get it? Is anybody gonna say anything about it? And you just wonder, but probably nobody will. No one's gonna see like, oh, I got that theme you're going for with the rats. That was great. No one's gonna say that. That's okay.
Yeah,
I'll know it's there.
I had a thing going on with color, like kind of. I don't know if you ever heard of ever watched Breaking Bad, but they have like a whole color theory that like the characters' emotions actually like are almost foreshadowed by the colors that they wear or like the objects of like certain things. So like if black is mystery, every time there's like a black product, it symbolizes XYZ, or blue and
Okay.
green. And so I just got so obsessed in the idea that I was just like, I mean, I can borrow tidbits of that. Why? The amount of hours that I put into it. I mean, the charts, actual charts that I have of like
Really.
it looks like Einstein's old thing for trying to get the conservation of energy equation up. It's like, oh man, I'll crack it one day. But I think that's the fun of writing, right? That's the whole joy
Mhm.
of the passion and how everything kind of gets together like that. So how did this joy morph into Chew? How did this, you know, frugal hobby, I guess, as you put it, that you can just like go into at any point? Just, I mean, you can take out a pen and paper when you're at the airport and really just start jotting something down, even if you have no Wi-Fi and your phone's dead, right? So how did that translate into this short story, which then translated into this, planned out 8 season, 50 around 1,000 word count per season? Like how did that transition?
So last year I found myself with a lot of time on my hands,
Oh, I wonder
as
why.
as we all did. And I bought a subscription to Masterclass, and I watched the Masterclass on James Patterson, who, by the way, I don't read, and I have to tell you, as a library worker, a former library worker, I hated that man. He has so much. He has so many titles, and every time he came out with a new one, we'd have to backshift everything on the shelf to make room for that new, once a month James Patterson novel. I mean, we just, oh gosh. But his masterclass was amazing.
Hmm.
And he, big problem I always had with writing was finishing. I would start story after story after story, and I never finished it. And I was always one of those people who thought, oh, I don't need no outline. I don't need an outline. I know what the story is going to say, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write it. Clearly, that wasn't working because I couldn't finish anything. And when he talked about his process, it really just clicked for me. I don't know that anybody else would get the same thing that I did, but when he started talking about the lengths and the detail that he has in his outlines, I really started to think, well, gee, maybe that's what I should have been doing all this time. And I actually outlined a an old thing that I'd been working on, and I was determined I was going to finish it because of that master class. That's what I was working on when I got the idea for Chew, and I kind of ended up, funnily enough, set that aside. And sometimes I toggle back and forth between the two. So I am still working on it. I have like I have 3 books in that. I'm working on the third one of that one right now, but that's more down the line. I don't really have time to fuss with it. It's trying to keep up with the 2 episodes a week kind of takes up all my time to Chew. So
I love that. Just personally, when I don't know why I broke it up in those type of syllables like that. It's for dramatic effect. I'm trying to work on my acting. I saw the James Franco masterclass. That's why. Um, Actually, that's more Christopher Walken, right? But when I write, every so often I just try to go out like in another way. Like if I like my first book I wrote in a first person point of view, present point of view, because I thought it was important to understand that even though you're seeing a story of this fictional larger world, the story itself, the book that you're reading, is just from one point of view. And
Mhm.
one point of view, I mean, like anybody says, the truth isn't, and from one person's point of view, or somewhere in the middle. So you get one person's point of view and another person's point of view, and then you, as a reader, interpret the middle, what actually happened in this world. For the second book that I'm writing now, I thought it'd be more fun to like work with like a narrator, a person that is omnipotent, that actually knows all the things, that can say, oh, well, this person's thinking that while they're thinking this, and neither of them know this, but this is going to happen or that happened in the past. It's not going to affect this current situation. And just being able to flip in between that, I always thought was so interesting. How did you handle the whole point of view thing? Because I think that has a major shift in not only the way that the story is told, but honestly, I think it has like a lot of greater. I mean, I think it's the skeleton of what writing is, the whole point of view thing. Because, like I said, when you have an omnipotent narrator, the amount of things that you can say, the amount of world building you can do is a lot more a lot less limited than what you would have when you have a first person point of view. But they both have their pros and cons.
Right. I mean, I agree. I think it's hugely important. That's probably, a lot of people, they worry about their cover art and their title. And yeah, that matters. But you really need to sit down and figure out what point of view is the best one to tell the story you're trying to tell.
Mm-hmm.
I actually wrote second person point of view. So the whole prologue that I sat down and wrote was all second person point of view, which is my favorite. And a lot of people, they kind of, oh man, that's, I'll pass. But I say, give it a try. I mean, all the Vella stories the first 3 episodes are free, so it doesn't cost you anything to look it over.
Make sure to look it up. Free on Kindle Vella. First 3 is up, and then after that, the whole first season is up, already ready. You can binge read it. That's a thing. People do that. We binge everything now.
I love that you're not under an obligation to buy anything. I mean, you can read it, and if my style is something you don't like, you could pass on it. I love that. I am not. I just think that's the greatest thing. So, especially with the second person point of view, that's a hard sell. I actually had a lot of things that I thought were going to be a hard sell. Feeling bad for zombies. Who wants to feel bad for zombies? Nobody. That's like the fun of a zombie thing is you're killing all these zombies. You don't want to stop and think, well, I wonder who they were first. And that turns out to be what people are loving right now. They love that's a whole different point of view. And then again, like I said, the second person I thought would be a hard sell, but it seems to be going over pretty okay. So I'm pretty happy about that.
And the whole thing about plotting too is like the moment that you talked about it is something that came into my mind immediately. Because the way that the story developed, I had, notebooks filled of things before I ever started writing things down. But then one random idea, I had like an idea for a short story, and I decided to just write it down instead of just like going through the paces. And I remember when I got to a halfway point, I just realized, I didn't plot this out the way that I thought it did. It's unreal, especially when you have like when you're doing world building on a fantasy level, or even if you're doing any level of creating like a fictional world, or even just an alternate world, right? When you have zombies or whatever have you. When you do that level of creativity or whatever you want to call it, the amount of different ways that it can go and the amount of different like ways that you can mess up on it are just it's a beautiful thing. So how did you handle that?
Can you mess up though? It's like Bob Ross, happy little accidents. I mean, maybe you didn't mess up. Maybe you just found something better. So I don't know.
I always think about it from the point of view of the author. Well, I don't know. I guess we're all a little bit kind of perfectionists. Whereas like you release it and then you're on your second book and you look back and go like, oh man, I could have done a little bit better. So I'm at that point that I just dropped my debut and I'm looking back at that like, oh man, I was really on that whole idea of the first person point of view, but maybe I should have done the narrator thing just because there were so many elements that I missed out that I could have fluffed up a little bit more and explained a little bit more if I had the more narrative pose as opposed to the first person.
I think it's a good exercise to try and write that first chapter in a couple different point of views. I knew Chew was going to be I knew that I was going to open with the second. I knew that story the second it came to me. I was watching a movie. I think it was called Alone. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a zombie movie, and it focuses more on the kid. He's kind of like stuck at home sequestered in his apartment, and he's too terrified to leave. I mean, which you don't blame. There's rage zombies all over the place. And one character, he finally comes across another character, and Donald Sutherland plays the other character, and he asks the other one, hey, do you think they'll have a cure? And he says, oh my gosh, that sounds horrible. I can't even imagine. Why would you do that to that person? And I like paused the movie right there, and I started thinking about why would you do that to that person? What if they remembered what they did? How awful they would feel. And I actually sat down and started writing right then.
Wow.
And I didn't finish that movie for 3 days. It took 3 days before I ever found out how that movie ended. So I didn't know, but I just knew that story, and I just kept writing it until it was done. So, but
My
ordinarily,
God.
I think you should try a couple different point of views, and see which one fits.
No, that's a really great point of view. I mean, just the different ways that you can go about things. I mean, how did you know that the second person point of view? How did you just know? And before
Yeah,
you
the whole
describe that,
point.
can you describe what second person point of view is and like the significance behind it?
So I think when you're talking about second person point of view, and you're using you, and you're really trying to put that reader in the spot. I don't know if you remember those choose your own adventure books when you
Yes.
were a kid.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
right. So the whole point of that, and they did a whole novel, and they were hugely popular, and I loved those when I was a kid. And you were having that adventure, and you were making the decisions, and you were in that position. And someone asked me, like, what do you want readers to feel or think, when they're reading to you? And the most honest answer is you should feel uncomfortable. You should feel very uncomfortable because it could be you. And my tagline is where were you when you turned? So, second person point of view, I think is the perfect vehicle to start that whole thing off with and say, you know, you wake up, and you're strapped down and you can't move and you can't ask any questions and you don't understand what's happened, but now the memories are coming back. Um, and it's you. And so that's why I don't think there was anything else. I don't think there's any other way to tell that story.
Wow. And and just going back to the whole idea of like plotting everything out, I think it's just so interesting. Like I've done some pretty basic levels, so like I'll just sit down and like write some stuff down and be like, oh, you know what, I'm pretty confident that I can just go on and write now. And then I'll go ahead and start writing, and then I'll get to like chapter 4 or 5 and realize that I actually need to make a timeline, because you just hit like that moment of like, oh, wait a minute, if this happened at this time, and you actually have to find yourself like making months up, and like be like, all right, well, if this happened in 2 weeks, that means that this happened in XYZ and da da da. I remember when I had to do that for my first book, I realized that the entire book just happens without anything that I did. It just happens to happen and take place in exactly 2 days, from start to finish on one day and start to finish on the end day, and it ends at midnight perfectly.
Okay.
And then the second book is all over the place because again, it's just like it wasn't plotted the same way, so it's just like the
Right.
interest level of how that goes. Like, did you take any challenges like that? Did you face anything like that?
Yes. I had a really low tech timeline. It was a sheet of copy paper that I had like a ruler and a pencil, and I started that way, because I didn't want to. We were in the middle of a pandemic, and at the time that I was writing it, were a lot of horrible reports coming out from all these different countries, and I didn't want. And I knew people were gonna kind of think of one when they thought of the other. So I didn't want the timeline at least to be on par with the pandemic that we are currently dealing with. So it takes place a little bit before COVID-19. But then I introduced that new character. I introduced Luke. And in order to get him into the story, I wanted to show what he dealt with to get to where he was, day zero, and the few days before that, and then the few days after that, how he survived. And so then that meant I had all these dates that I had to remember. So now I do have a spreadsheet now that I just kind of keep track of all the dates. And then I did cheat in season 2 because he's one's over here doing their thing, one's over here doing the other thing, and so this person over here doesn't quite line up with this person over here. So it's always been sort of like, your narrator is kind of, it's a third person, um, omnipotent point of view anyway. So I just I fudged it a little bit, and I said, undated entries used. And I'm like, well, that'll be good. Like, I mean, for hers, we know what day it is and everything, but they just don't quite line up. So I had to think a little bit. But then next season, it'll pick back up again with real dates. It is hard. You're trying to juggle. I have to look back at that spreadsheet all the time and say, oh, geez, when did this happen again? Like, and is this reasonable amount of time to? I mean, it's constant. Because someone will find it. I know that if I drop the ball, someone's gonna write to me and say, hey, I don't know. Actually, my editor did find out. I actually miscounted the days on one on one of them, and luckily she caught it, so it worked out. But yeah, no, somebody will find it and tell you. So.
Isn't that? I think that is one of the like things that I like. Humbling is the only word for it, right? When you get to a point that you have these like, I mean, a spreadsheet. Jesus, I don't even have a spreadsheet. I mean, like I'm low tech on that end. I just have a whole bunch of notebooks. So you're over here like, I was like, oh yeah, I have all this in my head, ready to go, unfallible. I've been working on this. Like, there's no chinks in my armor whatsoever. Then somebody just goes like, oh well, in chapter 3, you said that like the characters have this month time frame between each other. So does that mean that you meant for them to be like 13 at the time? And you're over there talking about like, oh,
A good point.
how did I not think about that? And of course, you just immediately get embarrassed. It's like, I'm over here worrying about like, when they look up in the sky, if they're not in the same solar system as I am, like I have to think about a different constellation that they see. So that means that they have like different horoscopes and all these things. And then I just got shot all the way down into the ground by a 4-month spread that I forgot to even account for in my main characters. Right. And you're just
you got to remember the little stuff and the big stuff. It's a lot. It's a lot to keep track of. I have a spreadsheet just because I have a terrible memory. So, and I have papers for other stuff, and I didn't really want to rifle through that many papers. So.
Oh no, I'm not knocking. If anything, I'm tipping my hat. I'm thinking that I need to probably start having a spreadsheet too.
It's not like anything elaborate. I wouldn't know how to do anything elaborate. It's just literally like a list. I just use spreadsheet because I like the cells are like nice and neat, and orderly. So it's just a list. Like these are the dates and this is what happened and this is where they were when it happened. So that's it.
Oh my God. I mean, just I have to say, our little talk about the whole narration thing, and especially like the background that you had as being a librarian,
library clerk.
I promise you I had librarian in my head and lawyer still came out.
Clerk. I'm a library clerk. Yeah, not a librarian.
Well, a library clerk.
Mm-hmm.
I have to ask, what do you think is one of your favorite methods of narration? And not necessarily for writing, but like something that you admire that maybe you would like to mimic in the day or in the future.
Ooh, I love Elmore Leonard. And I'm still working on all his books. I actually found him really, really late in life, but I think he is probably the gold standard in dialogue. He's not for everybody. He's very sparse. He has a tendency to, if you can take one word and it replaces 5, he's going to use that one word. And which I just love that. I love that about him. And I love that his dialogue is so snappy and yet it tells you so much about the character and it furthers the plot. I mean, I think he's the gold standard for dialogue. He has a lot of Westerns. I haven't read the Westerns. And mostly the crime novels. He's got a couple crime novels, but I'm still working on him. I wish I could read as fast as everything else. I have a bunch of things that I'm working on reading, but he's fantastic though.
I think the false narrator or the fake narrator is fascinating to me. The idea that the whole idea of a narrator is that they're supposed to be your homeboy, right? They're supposed to be your friend. It's like everything that I tell you.
Oh yeah, unreliable. Yeah,
unreliable. That's the word that I was thinking about. Sorry about that. Yeah, unreliable narrator. Sorry, folks. What do you want from me? Okay, I'm not that.
Yeah, Julian. I'm trying to think.
Kurt Vonnegut. I did it really well in Slaughterhouse 5. I know that's the idea I have. And Catch 22 also.
Yes, he's very unreliable.
Yeah.
Unreliable. I think wasn't Gone Girl or no? That was I guess that wasn't unreliable.
Man, Gone Girl was a good one too.
Not Gone Girl. The girl on the train. The girl on the train is an unreliable narrator.
I need to read that one.
She's the one telling you the story, and it turns out she can't reliably tell you the story. So without giving you any spoilers, that's a good one. That's been out for a really long time too. So I would try that one. That's good.
Yeah, that's just, it's just phenomenal. The only reason I asked is because I think I'm always thinking, especially with the luxury, I would say, of the whole indie publisher of being able to just go out and do your own thing without having to be represented by a big house publisher, is that we're not limited the same way. James Patterson, as you said, he's dropping a book every month, but James Patterson, what he's delivering. And if he ever delivers anything else, he's going to change his name. because
So he has a whole army of ghostwriters now, though.
now that I didn't know.
Oh yeah, I suspected. Filming
It's
that many
believable.
books,
Yeah.
I had a feeling, but
Yeah.
no, he's actually saying publicly. It was actually in the master class. He writes the outlines, and they write it. They do the heavy lifting, and then he goes over it. Of course, it has to be up to his
Standard.
specifications. Yeah. But no, he might have 3 or 4. They actually interviewed him in the master class. What is it like to work with James Patterson? But he probably has 3 or 4 authors now that actually write the stories. So I think he's his own publisher at this point. I think James Patterson Inc. might actually be publishing their own books.
That may, I mean, at that level,
that
level, I'd be foolish not to.
Right.
But I guess like the whole idea is just like I think that at a certain level, there are just certain things that you almost like can't do anymore. Like Stephen King, you know what you're getting with Stephen King. He's not going to come around and do a sci-fi comedy one day. I think we have that luxury.
You don't know. I don't know. He might.
He might. And if you're listening to the Stephen King, which is highly likely, makes a whole bunch of sense that you're listening to this podcast right now. But if somehow there are, in some weird reality,
take my money. I'll buy it.
Take my money. I definitely want to read that. But for the most part, I think that the publishing houses, for the most part, limit that. And I think that we have the luxury of doing almost whatever we want. So I wonder when Chew is a little more up and running, right? Or maybe it becomes a serialization that you start having ghostwriters for, right? You just like start popping up outlines, be like, all right, this is what we want for season 28,000 of Chew, all right? And this is what I want for 29 and 38 and so on and so forth, right? Do you think you'll ever venture out? Do you think you'll ever go and do something else?
Oh, absolutely. I probably have a 4-inch thick file of ideas of other things that I want to write. Like I said, I still need to finish the fantasy series. I was hoping this fall, but I don't foresee it unless I get caught up and really, I've been trying to write by dictation. It's not going well. If I could get that mastered, I'd be able to write a lot faster. I'll get to my fantasy series again by the end of this year.
Dictation, you say?
Yeah, dictation. I've been trying. It's tough. I don't know. People say they're writing like 10,000 words a day with that.
With dictation.
Yeah.
Like how do they like pay like a guy named Bentley with like with an ascot to like sit down on a chair and you have like one of those like puffing things while you're looking at a stately manor in the window?
Sign me up for that. That sounds awesome.
Get this down, Johnson.
Actually, Microsoft Word already has dictation. You can actually put your headphones on your phone and just start talking. I've been outlining that way. It is fast, but I don't know if I could write like that. It's hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I have my brain isn't that linear.
Yeah, I don't. But you know what? I see authors talking about they're posting up these 10,000 a day word counts. I mean, respect. I can't do. I can only write about 3,000 words a day as long as everything goes well. I don't get interrupted and there's not a thunderstorm to upset my dog. Whatever it is. But that's about it. That's my max. So. I forget the question now. We got so off topic. I don't even remember what you asked me.
No, the question was like the whole thing about Chew is that Chew is the horror romance fantasy, right? Well, supernatural
supernatural
horror.
Thriller. I like the title supernatural thriller better than I mean it is a horror novel, I guess. But I don't know. It seems more on par. If you're chicken, I'm a big chicken. I don't like gore. I don't like the Saw movies and stuff. We don't have that in Chew. It's very downplayed, I think. I think it's really more about psychological stuff than, this zombie, we're going to talk about how this zombie's eating a person for 10 pages. No, we're not doing that. I couldn't do that. That would gross me out. So supernatural thriller, we'll say.
Man, honestly, that in itself could be a whole multi-saga episode of this podcast that goes on forever and ever, just themes. When I originally wrote my book, never in my life did I have genetic engineering anywhere in my head, and now that's one of the topics, one of the subgenres that for Amazon, because that's the way that they classify it. They don't have whatever the heck sci-fi that I made, they have genetic engineering, and it's like when you start doing the math, it's like, oh well, technically, I mean, I guess I just didn't think about it like that. So
Yeah, that's a whole other subject too.
yeah,
Amazon and keywords, and I haven't navigated that yet. I'm about to get into that in the next month or so, so I'm not looking forward to that much. But yeah, that is one nice thing about Vella. It definitely is a nice stepping off point. I didn't have to know any of that. I just started posting. They don't even allow you to format. It's such a bare bones format. It won't even allow me to like align. I can't even do like center aligned or anything like that. I mean, you get bold, italic. That's it. There are no other choices when you're posting your episodes. So you
now,
don't have to know too much. You only get 6 tags, I think, too.
wow.
Yeah.
And how does it work as far as posting? You said that you have to have 10 episodes already ready to go by the time that you publish?
No, you can start. I mean, so your first 3 are going to be free. That's for everybody. I personally, you should at least have 4, I think, ready to go so that you have one that the customer can unlock if they want to. But you can start with 1 if you want. There's no minimum. They told us for launch day, we recommend you have 10 ready to go. So a lot of us did. But no, there's no minimum. Like I said, there's so much you don't have to know. You don't have to deal with that KDP. Um, whatever that, like I said, I haven't got into any of that yet.
Yeah,
So
the
it's
algorithm
just
is
really
insane.
easy. It doesn't get any easier than that. So it's a good entry level thing to start off with.
Now, diving a little bit more into Chew. So we talked about everything about the bare bones, about getting to the point of writing, the challenges you face to get there, all the technicals behind it. Talk me through Chew itself. Without getting too much into spoilers, what is the background? What is Luke? How did you go into the introduction of adding characters? This cured zombie point of view. How did you maneuver the plot? How did you maneuver that character development? And is he the only cured zombie? Is that a part of the grander world in itself?
So without spoilers, the main character is Allison Rose, and she meets a guy named Will Taylor in the yard of the recovery center. And at first, he seems like he's just another villain. These people have a ton of trauma, and they're just sort of all herded together. They're treated like animals. I mean, it's a pretty awful situation that I actually don't dive into a lot to begin with, because I think part of their story is when they are released that they have to deal with all of it later. So a lot of that is actually revealed later on in the series. But so you have the point of view of what it's like to be cured and how they're treated by following Allison's story. And then you have Luke from the other side of things, and he's very cute. I'll just say, I mean, he really wants to help, and he's very open-minded, and he isn't bothered by the fact that they're one of those icky infected people. And he actually spends his time in quarantine posting things online and boosting signals and all of the good things that a person would do. But then he actually finds out that it's not quite like that. And it's a little harder to do than maybe sharing a meme online. And so then we kind of are now following his character development and what happens to him. And of course, Allison and Luke, they get together for a short time, and then they have different tracks, they have different stories. So I don't want to say too much other than that. But and then of course there's the big villain. I mean, every arc is going to have a villain. In season 1, there's Clive Craig. I don't want to say too much till you get to his part, but he definitely, actually, I mean, I kind of make fun of the entire horror gore industry a little bit on that. And nobody's complained, so I don't know, maybe they think it's funny too, but yeah, he's the big villain of that one. And just, like I said, every season will have, its own thing to overcome. But the point is these characters are hopefully growing with each season. Luke, for example, he is right now where I'm at. He's in boot camp. You'll find out in season 1 that he's been recruited. He's been drafted because they've lost all of the medical personnel. Obviously, when people got sick, they went to the hospitals. There's definitely a shortage. And the first thing the government wants to do, which is struggling and limping along, is get all these doctors and nurses and healthcare workers under their thumb as quickly as possible. So he's been drafted, and that's kind of how he meets them. He's on his way to report to his basic training. So I don't know, you're just going to have like a theme that they're each going to have to deal with. There's plenty of room. If I wanted to do, chew Los Angeles, I could. Chew Las Vegas, I could. I mean, there's no end. The whole point is every regular person could potentially have to do this. We did, right? I mean, we all had to deal with COVID. I really didn't want to draw the parallel, but it is true. I mean, we all just kind of went through like a huge thing. It all panned out differently for us in different ways. And when you talk about this, I mean, there's so many stories you could tell. What if an airline attendant, that their trigger flipped, 40,000 feet in the air? What if it was the pilot next to you? You're the co-pilot, your pilot, all of a sudden, maybe he's strapped in, but next thing he's trying to attack you. You have no idea. I mean, it could be anybody at any time. I mean, they didn't know. They had no warning. They felt like a little something, and the next thing you know, they weren't them anymore. It was that quick.
My God, that is fascinating.
I mean, it's scary. One second you're you, and the next second you're not.
Well, the main thing that got my brain kind of going as you were saying that was that I realized that almost every writer has like a glue, right? Like depending on what the genre is, depending on what it is, but they have a certain thing that just progressively moves the plot forward. So I would say like there's certain people that no matter what they're writing, romance is always that glue. They always have a constant love tension in between the dialogue, in between the words, in between line to line. Other people are sarcasm and wit, whatever it may be. What do you think your glue is? What do you think is that one thread line that just always follows through with the writing?
For everything, or for Chew in particular?
Chew in particular.
So Chew in particular, I would say the relationship between Allison and Will is the glue to that entire universe. And everything comes down to that relationship. So, I mean, it's always going to be about characters. It's always going to be about people and what they mean to each other. And I think at the end of the day, it started with them and it ends with them. So.
Now that's interesting, because what I mean by the glue is like that's the one theme that's always coming on. You said yourself, it's not really horror, more of a thriller, zombie. So those scenes are going to flick on and off between tension and rise of tension and lower of tension, conflict and resolution, all those things.
Background.
It's your background.
Like the music, yeah.
Yeah, but the romance is the thing that's going to be just all the way through there. Like if you're watching a Marvel movie, for example, it's going to take you to different universes and talk the aliens and all these things, but for the most part, sarcasm and wit is kind of the through line there, because the characters will always be referring back to like something witty, or depending on how they decide to interpret their world. Even if it's all crazy, the character decides to interpret it from the point of view of sarcasm or wit, because that's how the character is. If you have a main character that's like romantic, then everything they see is through that kind of like, romance. I have to care about my person, they care about me, and that whole conflict and resolution between that. Do you think you'll ever go a different route with the glue? Because I don't think that I think the glue is almost a style point. It's not even genre based. Like you can write in different genres with different types of glues and all different types of things. So do you ever think you'll change up that level of writing? Do you ever think you'll focus on something else?
I guess the secondary thing of the theme, the glue would be survival. I mean, that's always going to be an undercurrent for all of them. They're all, I mean, it's not the apocalypse, the world didn't end, but it's not in great shape, and everybody's trying to survive. So I think really for everything I've ever written, it all comes down to characters and relationships that they have with each other. So I think that, no, I don't think that'll change. I don't know. I don't think I could ever write anything that wasn't hugely character driven. If I couldn't make you care about that character, I wouldn't even put it out there. I wouldn't have an interest in it anymore. If I were to send it to a beta reader and they said, I don't know, I couldn't get into it. It was a cool story, but such and such character, I just didn't like them. Well, then it's dead in the water. There's no point in having it out, because if you don't care about the people, even you don't have to relate to them, in my opinion. You just have to care about what happens to them. Maybe you hate them and you want to see something horrible happen to them. I don't know. But if you don't care about them in any way, I don't think there's a story, in my opinion.
Well, definitely that. There always has to be an emotional through line. I've talked about it countless of times in previous episodes. I mean, for as cool as your world is, if you're not caring about the main character, there's nothing to push to move you forward, right?
But I kind of get into, like, it's not even just about the main character. I mean, you meet new characters, and the nice thing about the third person, all knowing character is, like, I pop in and I tell you, so and so is from here. You get like a little bit of background, and so you're invested in whether or not you want, Allison to befriend this person or murder them and leave them on the side of the road. I mean, like, it's all characters. The entire point of the whole thing, I think, is about people. And even if the relationship lasts 5 minutes, there was a meeting there, and it mattered. To me, that matters. Every single person matters in that universe, just like in our universe. I think every single person matters.
And so how do you go about the development of new characters? Do you draw them from inspiration? How do you mold them for a necessity of a plot and then add person traits after? Or do you make a character that you just want to interact emotionally with your main character and go from there?
I wish I had a great answer, but I don't know where they come from. I write like these rough drafts, and a lot of times I'll put, I don't know. The first draft for me is pretty rough. I just tell myself the story. It's not readable, in my opinion, in any way. And then you get into the second version of that, and you revise it and you start adding in details. So far, these characters have not let me down. They show up right when they're supposed to show up, and it works out perfectly. So I might put in a placeholder and say, I don't know, they're going to meet somebody here, and this probably will happen. And then, I don't know, later on, I actually just wrote a whole thing about someone named Mallory. I don't know where she came from. She's wild, but she's there, and she showed up right when she was supposed to. So knock on wood. I've been getting pretty lucky. I got a lot of side characters, and they just volunteer themselves. I don't know. Like I said, I wish I had a great. I don't have. That's my only answer. I'm lucky, I guess.
Oh man. So what do you think is the future for Kindle Vella? How do you think the platform will coexist? You already said the whole thing about the bare bones and like the basics, but how do you think, what would you like to see in the future? What do you think is would not only get more readers attracted to it, but what would you like Amazon to allow you to do within the platform?
So I think if they want to really compete with some of these other, like Wattpad and
Inket,
Radish.
yeah.
Yes. I think if they really want to compete, first of all, they need their own app. Like, you can't say, I can't even read it on my Kindle. I have a Kindle. I can't read Vella stories on it. You can only use the iOS app on your phone. Yeah, I don't, very soft launch. I think that you need better discoverability. Carousel. Right now you get top faves, which is kind of a weird. I try to explain that to a reader, and it's not going to happen. It doesn't make any sense. But you have top faves, and then there's some other note of distinction for highly read stories. What they need is a carousel that shows recently updated. So if you have somebody that's busting their hump and they're posting 2, 3, 4 times a week, they should be popping up in that little carousel. And it gives them some discoverability for readers who are looking for their next thing. I would say, what else? Searching by completed works. You should be able to search by completed works. Currently, you can't. I joke that they act like they've never been to AO3 and got burned on an unfinished story or something, because there is no way to find one that for sure is completed. They set the whole thing up as like episodic television format, but there actually isn't a way to put separate seasons under the same story. So like when you go to Chew, it's episodes 1 through 18 is considered season 1. Episode 19 is considered season 2. And the only way for me to mark that is to put it in an episode title. Season 2 starts here. That's not great. I mean, no. It doesn't look neat. I don't like it. If that was the model, if you were going to start calling things episodes, then make it like episodes, make it like seasons, make it like TV. So I'm not enthralled with that. But the biggest thing though, I think a completed tag and the that little carousel. You know, you're updating. You're updating. If one person's updating once a month, fine. A person who's updating 3 and 4 times a week, they should get those cute. You know, you should be able to see them. They should be on that front page and get the reader's attention. So I'm sure there's other. I know there's a lot of complaints among some of the authors. I'm sure they have better ones, but I would say those are the 2 biggest ones. So I know they're trying to advertise. That was a complaint a lot of them had. They're getting it. I think it takes a while to get an advertising campaign. I didn't expect to see anybody reading anything for 6 months. So I feel like, I mean, I feel lucky. I've seen other authors who are really taking off. I don't know. I think it's going better than you'd expect. So I think it's a pretty good platform.
Yeah, it's always an interesting conversation, like having, especially when talking to people now that like aren't that crazy. Like when I go to dinner, lunch, XYZ with like friends, people my age, and like I was like, oh yeah, well I'm into writing now. It's like, writing today? Well, like writing like for like tweets or something like that. It's like, nah, writing books, like books, really. People still doing that. It's like, oh no, like when you actually get in, you realize that like it's like huge. Like what? Like 20-30 million books were published this year.
Yes.
This year alone.
There is no shortage of reading material out there.
No shortage. No. And people are really about reading. I mean, it's like a huge thing right now. So
yes,
I think
the hard part is getting that person that wants to read your book in front of your book when they feel like reading it. I'd say that's the only hindrance.
Yeah, I mean, oh my God, marketing in itself is a whole different thing itself. I mean, we were all raised with the whole idea, don't judge a book by its cover, and then that's 100% how you sell books, though.
Yes, by the cover.
Yeah.
Cover, title, blurb.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know anything. We just established that, and even I know that. You got to have cover, title, blurb. Those are the 3 things, I think, the Trinity.
And you have a great cover as well for Chew. Beautiful, just like really eye-popping. I love like that. I don't know. There's a certain enigma. Yeah.
Hopefully it's creepy.
Yeah.
Comfortable.
Yeah. No, phenomenal. Now, we're approaching the end, and I always like to end on asking the favorites. Now, this is a weird thing because it's like asking you for, like, what is your favorite limb or what's your favorite finger? But what is your favorite character? What was your favorite scene? And what is something that you want the listeners to take away from the story? What is something you want that last sales pitch at the end of the meeting?
Oh gosh, favorite character. So overall, I would say Luke is my favorite character. He didn't start out that way. I used to love Will, but I'd say Luke. My favorite scene is the very first scene between Will and Allison when they meet. And what was the last question? Sorry. I think that was it, right? Did I cover it all?
Well, favorite character, favorite scene, and the last part was like what is something that you want people to take away from the story? What is the last sales pitch you want for the book?
Oh, well, hopefully it makes you uncomfortable. Hopefully it makes you think about your place in the universe and how you fit in with the other people around you. We don't have a zombie apocalypse, but you know, there's a germ being created all the time by nature. But you know, hey, it could happen at any time. So not zombies, but you know, and all we have is each other at the end of the day. It doesn't matter where you came from or where you're going, and a virus or something like that is it's a common, the great leveler, I guess. I don't care if you're a millionaire. It's not going to protect you against the virus. I don't care if you've been a homeless guy and you've been, digging in dumpsters. Maybe your survival skills are off the hook and you're going to make it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think we all need each other to survive. So that's it, I guess. That's the whole pitch.
Yeah, that's a good little tagline. We all need each other to survive. Oof, it's powerful. Now, where can people find you? Instagram, Twitter, website. Already established the Kindle Vella. Chew is up now. First season. First 3 episodes are free. Make sure to check up on that. Naomi Ault. Google that. Google Naomi Ault Chew. It will pop up. It's been proven scientifically. I have the data to support it. just go ahead and do that. Look it up, read into it. I'm telling you, it's fun. I've read a little bit of it. Well worth the time if you're into the whole zombie and the different point of view of a cured zombie. I mean, that's just a fun prologue altogether. So definitely hats off for that. Kudos. But on to you. Where can people find the work?
So I obviously on Amazon Kindle Vella. I also started up a Patreon account because it's not open to anyone outside the U.S. So if you were outside the U.S., you could read it there. It's actually pretty cheap. It's $2. You can finish the whole thing. I have a website, naomiault.com, and I've been trying to keep that up to date with what's coming out, what's going on. I've been mostly active on Instagram, but I have an account pretty much everywhere. So I mean, you could email me even if you wanted to. It's on the contact page of my website. There's no shortage of ways to get a hold of me.
And what is the tag on Instagram again?
The Instagram, it's Naomi Ault author, I think it is.
Naomi, so at Naomi Ault author. Make sure to check up on that. Yeah.
If not, or it's Naomi Ault. I've got like a little icon, like a logo that I've been using. So, and I've used that across everything. So it's easy to recognize. So either way, naomiault.com will show you where you need to go.
Now, phenomenal. Just thank you for coming on and talking with us and just sharing everything that you've gone through. Again, Chew, out now, Kindle Vella, pick it up. And did you land on that you're going to drop it as a novelization within time, or are you going to leave it as a Kindle Vella exclusive?
I'm actually working on it right now. We'll have the first book will be out, in September. This month, probably by the end of the month. I've been working on taking those episodes and putting that into a novel.
So make sure to go ahead and do that. Follow her on Instagram. Be a part of the process, the progress. Get notifications up on Amazon for her Amazon author page. Do what you got to do. Support the indies. Thank you again. This is the end of the podcast. A.R.'s Tales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I've been A.R. Bal. This has been Naomi Ault. Thank you again, and check up on us next Monday for our next author interview. Peace out.